Welcome to the New York Now podcast, a modern wholesale market for retailers and specialty buyers seeking diversity and discovery. Gathering twice a year in America's design capital, New York City, it's where buyers and designers unearth a refreshed and dedicated collection of eclectic lifestyle products. Jen Cullen Williams, founder of Cullen of Williams Communications. An award-winning communications and PR strategist, Jen is known for creativity, connections, specializing in enhancing market exposure for brands, retailers, and organizations across fashion, jewelry, and luxury consumer markets. Prior to launching her consultancy in 2019, she began her career at fashion firm Red Light PR, later becoming the managing director for the agency Luxury Brand Group from 2007 to 2019, where she continues to consult. She has spent the past 15 years working on brand development and communications for programs for some of the leading jewelry industry companies, securing placements in top media outlets including Forbes, the New York Times, Vogue, Oprah, People, and Who, What, Where, and many others. Jen serves on the JCK Events Advisory Board, the National Board for Women's Jewelry Association, the WJA, as Regional Director, and in a past president of the WJA of the Los Angeles chapter. In 2020, she was a judge for the INSTORE Cool Stores competition and currently co-writes a monthly column for the National Jeweler on creative connecting. Jen is passionate about working with people, building relationships, and businesses by developing creative and modern ways to communicate and engage with consumers and the media. Jessica Richards is a trend forecaster, brand creator, and founder of JMR Design Consulting, whose synergistic focus inspires what is now and next. With an extensive background in forecasting, concepts, and design for major North American retailers, she brings forward-thinking, commercial, and brand right viability to projects across fashion and wellness industries. She has been quoted and featured as a guest expert across international media, including the New York Times, Elle Canada, City TV, and more. Jessica serves as trend director for the Accessories Council, a not-for-profit international trade organization with a mission to stimulate global consumer awareness and demand for fashion accessory products. She is also fashion director for the newly relaunched Accessories magazine, whose dedicated focus on accessories serves the trade with industry news and editorial direction for brands, wholesalers, and retailers. In this role, Jessica gives insight to industry and consumer trends, as well as direction to future development and merchandising strategies. We are delighted to have you both joining us today.
Hello. Hi, I'm Jen Cullen Williams, a communications and PR consultant. And I want to thank New York Now podcast for inviting me to moderate. I am thrilled to introduce you to a special guest, Jessica Richards, the founder of JMR Design Consulting. She is a very experienced fashion and accessory market trend forecaster and consultant. And she's also the fashion director at Accessories Council and was recently quoted in the International New York Times. She is full of so many takeaways for fashion, accessories, jewelry markets, for retailers, for exhibitors, for designers, manufacturers. She has great tips on gift guides and what gifting looks like into 2021 and beyond. And I just want to thank her for joining me and welcome Jessica.
Hello. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So to kick things off, tell us a little bit more about you. How did you get into the fashion industry, and then specifically your path to trend forecasting?
I had a really different approach to getting into the fashion industry. When I was growing up, I always loved fashion, always loved magazines, but I had no natural skills when it came to sketching or drawing. So I didn't know that there was a pathway to get into the industry without having those kind of skills. I went to school, I went to Boston University for magazine journalism. I loved writing. I loved doing layouts and different concepts. So that was my natural progression into figuring out where my skill set would be best used to get into fashion. once I left school, I got the opportunity to take a temporary job at LVMH in the Christian Dior executive offices, which was great.
Wow. No big
Yeah,
deal.
it was a complete surprise. It was an introduction that one of my friends who worked in the HR department got me in there. And through that, I started doing executive assisting. My next role was to go to a major retailer, and I was working as the second assistant to the CEO of that company. Now, this is where my story changes to become a design story. I met my mentor, Marie Rayo, who walked into the office I was working in one day. She looked at me. She said, "I love your haircut. If I take this job here, will you come work for me?" Now, I'd never met this person before. So I had no idea who she was, where she was coming from, what she was going to do. But I just said yes, because I thought that she was just so fabulous. I found out later that she wrote me into her contract, but Marie has a really fantastic background. She's worked for so many retailers. She was the creator of Pink by Victoria's Secret. And when she came into this retailer that I was working in, her purpose was to go to design and to not just work on the product that was currently in the stores, but also to create an accessories concept store. So to give a little bit more background there too, the year was 2008. We were going through the recession as a country. And this accessories concept store, the idea was to build a brand that stood for more luxe forward products than the retailer we were at, but at a price point that we could capture the trade down market. So if you were a mall consumer shopping already in the stores that were one level above where we were, this accessories concept store was really capturing the trend, the aesthetic, the idea of quality, but at a lower price point. So that trade down customer was the magical retail phrase at that time, and that's really what we were doing. It was a fantastic brand. There were so many great ideas that came out of that brand, and what I learned most was how to build a brand, how to build concepts, and to do trend forecasting. And I also learned just really how to respond to what's going on in the zeitgeist, and how to make that part of brand building and concept building in responding to what the customer was really looking for. Later in my career, I went on to work for a department store group. I was design director for handbags, accessories, and footwear. And when I was first brought onto that team, we were launching a private label brand product that really stood as a brand. It wasn't just commodity private label product like there normally is within a store that's a margin builder. This product had a point of view, and it had meaning, and it stood to be the fashion umbrella for the stores that we represented. And it was a fantastic opportunity. It was one of my favorite projects that I've worked on to date. Earlier in 2020 is when I launched my own business. And what a year to launch a business. And that's what I'm working on now as the founder of JMR Design Consulting.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your business. How do brands and retailers, how do they work with you? What can they expect from you?
What I love about this year, even though it's an incredibly challenging year, is that we've learned as retailers and as brands that if you want to survive, you've got to be able to pivot and stay resilient. So instead of having a singular ethos of I'm a trend forecaster and that's what I do, I like to think of myself as a woman that wears many accessories, many hats, many accessories. And I think that for the services that I provide, it's just really a bespoke experience. And working with all of the clients that I've worked with, we really touch upon what it is that their particular needs are and how we can address them. So from a broader perspective, I do trend forecasting, and I really approach trends from a global perspective within each of the projects that I work on, depending on whether the client wants this to have an internal reach, an external reach. If it's to work with clients like the New York Now show, where we're working with buyers and exhibitors alike, each project that I do is really, really customized to what the end product needs to be. I also think that what's great about my business is that we're not just thinking about trends in terms of creating something new or what's happening or fast fashion, things that are just changing and changing and changing. We're thinking about trends and big cultural shifts that are making us approach product development, but also storytelling in very new ways. So that's part of my business approach as well, is not just what can we make that's new, it's also how can we speak to our customers and our clients in a new way.
Wonderful. I'd love to know a little bit more on the trend forecasting side of the business and what that process is like. I feel like we hear the word a lot, but not everyone knows what that means. Some people think that means that you're a fortune teller, and that's not necessarily, because you're really using a lot of research and data to help cull together and identify what the trends and concepts are. So can you just share a little bit more about that and kind of what inspires your research and the steps of that process?
Sure. Oh, just to clarify, I am a fortune teller.
Good to know.
So I start by looking into my crystal ball. No, I'm just kidding.
I wish we could do that.
As a trend forecaster, one of the qualities that you really need to have is an insatiable curiosity. So I love to read everything that I possibly can, whether it's industry news or if it's information about what the housewives are doing. It really ranges from really, really highbrow all the way down, and kind of thinking about everything on a global scale, watching everything. When Emily in Paris came out, it was essential watching for me, because that was going to be anything that anybody was talking about. That's going to affect styling. That's going to affect accessorizing. Really just
Love that
having,
show.
right.
I upped my sweater game, and oh, that was so great. Everyone needed a little Emily. I think I watched it twice.
I think that was the highlight of quarantine. It really knocked Tiger King. We didn't even think about Tiger King after Emily came out.
No, I'm so glad it came out.
Excited for the second season. Really, the other thing that I would say is so important for me is just saving and acquiring thousands of images. If anyone goes into my phone or goes into my Google Drive, all you see are just millions of albums with thousands of photos of them. Because anytime I see something, I really try to capture that and save it, because that's going to start telling the story in my head later. Why am I looking at that? Why does that look new to me? Why is that interesting? So saving thousands of photos. And I would really love to give a public apology to anyone who's ever been my assistant, because I have a very photographic memory. I might call you in the middle of the night and say, do you remember that photo I took in Milan? It was in that store. I think it was fall 2016. It's just, I have this really crazy memory for all of the images. I'm truly the queen of images. Going to stores, seeing what's happening on the high level in the luxury market, what's happening in the faster stores. And then really the secret to my success is Post-its. I love having many colors of Post-its available to me. My closet doors have been my whiteboard for this entire quarantine process. So I'm always writing notes down, saving them. It's sort of like a mad woman if you come into my bedroom and see all of these Post-its in different colors. But really, I should have a Post-its partnership, because I just love them so much. Another part of my process, once I'm just saving all of that information, and again, it's so much information and reading and watching and saving the images, but taking that away and starting to talk to people that are real consumers. So I live in New York. I work in the fashion industry. This really represents a very small percentage of the point of view of people that we would be producing product for. So I'm always talking to my family. My aunts are my number one focus group. I'm always asking them questions, and they have a lot to tell me and to say. I have friends that live all over the country. I really try to ask people all of the time, what is it that you want right now? What is it that you're having a challenge to find? What is it that you're re-wearing from your closet? It's having these active conversations, because it's the touch point of the consumer, and that's the best way for us to build product. Ultimately, the biggest question that I ask myself as I'm preparing my forecasts are where we've been, where we're going. So that's part of the thought process as well. As trends ebb and flow through runway and through street. if they start in one place, we kind of see them going into another place. But I ask myself this question: what are people doing more and what are people doing less? And that becomes a huge part of my research projects. Just to think about what's happening out in the world, and all of the zeitgeisty kind of references is important. But I do like to take it back as well to a product development place. I know I'm giving a lot of reasons, but this is why it's a very complicated job. But being someone that has a design background and that has worked in product development and production, the other thing that we really have to think about is what's available in the factories from a fabric perspective, a raw materials perspective, and a machinery perspective. And just to give a little bit of clarity on that, there's innovations that happen in fabric, and that will determine silhouettes. So if we're seeing certain things happening in the fabric world, that shapes can be held or silhouettes can be held, you're probably going to expect oversized shapes and silhouettes to happen. From a machinery perspective, a quick reference that I can give is that circle bags were really big a few seasons back. The machinery that's required to make a bag like that is not readily available. So it was a great micro trend because not all factories had that kind of machinery. So many factors in the trend forecasting process.
Not just a crystal ball.
Not just that.
Lot more than that. So my next question, because just thinking about you, true to brand, you wear a lot of hats, a lot of accessories. And in addition to your consultancy, you are also the fashion director for Accessories Council. So can you tell us a little bit more about what Accessories Council is and your role within Accessories Council?
Yes. So the Accessories Council is an organization that's very close to my heart. It's a wonderful team. It's a not-for-profit organization, and it represents the global accessories community. So the Accessories Council is involved in so many ways with all of their members, but also really following the news and the industry changes that are happening, really helping their members through those changes. Like the tariffs would be a great example. They were very actively involved with their members and with the government on working through accessory representation there. But it's a really fantastic organization. And what I'd also say is that through a year where we're also isolated at home, they were really actively involved with their members to help keep people afloat and really work with their members closely. In my role as the trend director there, I work with the team to present seasonal forecasts and product development checklists. And this is really a high level way that I give insight to the Accessories Council's community. So one of the things that I like to do is just create these really beautiful forecasts. I usually pick 3 big concepts and choose products and color direction and different ideas within that. It's not meant for any level of the market. It's not meant for any specific client. So it's just really this high level global view of what I see as a seasonal forecast. I also get into more of the moment reporting. So there was a report I did on PPE earlier in the year when we were thinking about, well, what's happening in masks from a fashion perspective or from a product development perspective. Later in the season or later in the year, I did a gift giving report. So that's something that I would do for the Accessories Council. Again, really this idea of trend being developing new product, but also thinking about what's happening in the market and what's relevant ideas that we have to think about from that perspective as well.
Fantastic. And I sort of heard through the grapevine that Accessories Council has some exciting things that are happening that they have acquired and will be relaunching Accessories Magazine. And so I just want to see if we could have some insider scoop on this. When will it launch? What can readers anticipate? And any details you can give us, we're into it.
So I can give you some details, but not all. You'll see that when the magazine relaunches the first week of January. So we're going digitally native, really excited about this relaunch of the magazine. The Accessories Council has acquired Accessories Magazine, and we're keeping this focus on the trade. So all of the news and editorial and direction in the magazine will benefit the members of the trade, brands, wholesalers, retailers. I am acting fashion director of the magazine. So what I'll be doing is giving insight to industry and consumer trends, as well as direction that I'm seeing for future development and merchandising strategies. So thinking about what's happening in each of the product categories of accessories and giving a little bit of guidance, not just for product development ideas, but also things that we think could be great merchandising or storytelling strategies in our space.
Wow, very exciting. So looking forward to
Yes.
that. Thanks for sharing, giving us some insider scoop. So my next question is kind of just touching on holiday gift guides, because I know you mentioned it and you had created a holiday gift guide for Accessories Council. So curious to hear from your perspective what types of gifts you're seeing in the accessories category, and then what kind of new trends did you uncover while you were putting together the gift guides?
I loved putting together this gift guide for the Accessories Council. This came as a brainstorm. Karen Giberson is our president of the Accessories Council, and we had coffee and we were just thinking about, in this year, what can we say about accessories gift giving? And so I had this idea of not just thinking about the items that we would be giving as gifts, but what are the new ways that we're living, and how do we give gifts for those new ways of living? So for example, one of my favorite pages that I had was gifts for fancy FaceTimes. So what I loved about this idea is giving a sparkly headband or a hair accessory or some sort of beautiful piece of jewelry, but sending that along with a bottle of wine and a Zoom invite or a fancy FaceTime invite. And there you go. This is the idea of what the experiential gift looks like in 2020. It's not a voucher to go, jump out of a plane or whatever these activities that people have done. It's a little bit closer to home, and it's really specific for the year, but it's this way of tying in tangible gifts. Again, we're really coming off of years of experiential gifts. So now we're back to this idea of a physical gift. And I love the idea of putting it within a little concept. So that was one of our big ideas. Another was gifts for eating outdoors. So this idea of like really warm, fuzzy socks, like a big oversized scarf, accessories that you can wear that are going to keep you warm. And maybe it would come with like a little invite to dinner or something like that, or people eating by their fire pits in their backyard. There's just so many great little stories you can tell. Also, you can tell I'm an avid gift giver. I love, like, it just can't be the thing. It has to have layers and layers upon it. I really also see in gift giving, thinking about things that are essential. I think that we'll see that because so many people have struggled this year or had difficulty this year, that essential items are something that we'll really see as a big idea. Gifts that are personalized. So I think that we'll see a lot of very personal jewelry, symbolic jewelry, things like that. And then also things that represent connectivity. So staying connected is something that we've felt really strongly about this year. So different concepts and ideas within those bigger groups. And that's really what the direction will be of gift giving.
Absolutely. I definitely see on the personalization side, I've been buying gifts lately, and I've been doing a lot of personalized gifts.
I love that.
Names on things and personalized books and that kind of stuff. And it's so such, I don't know, you hold on to it so much longer. So consumers, we know, are shopping differently than they have in the past. Typically it was in store. Now we know it's online. What, you were kind of touching on it a little bit, but what are some of the gifts looking like? We've moved away from traditional package presentations that you would see in stores. Any insights on giftable items for 2021?
So I had a really fantastic conversation with Dondrel from the New York Now team about this recently, and we were musing about our youth growing up in different parts of the Northeast, and she was talking about Bonwit Teller, and I grew up outside of Boston, so I was thinking about Filene's and Jordan Marsh and all of these really fantastic department stores. And when it came to holiday time, you would be walking through the stores, and there would be pre-packaged gifts. So it would be in the vitrines or it would be at the cash wrap. So what I think is happening that's still the same from thinking of those days of the pre-packaged gift, go in, grab it. That's what you're giving that year, is that retailers still need to tell the story of this is the item to give. So it was a little bit easier then because you could just whip in and you know exactly what it is that the store was standing for. And they're saying this is the thing. But I think that the items themselves are very changed. We're talking about the personalization being one of the big ideas, but as brands and retailers, we still need to direct the consumer to whatever the gift of the season is. So again, it's this idea of really signaling to the consumer or the customer, this is the gift that your friend wants to receive. This is the gift to give to your loved one. The methodology has really changed. The presentation has really changed, but this idea that we as brands and retailers still need to give the directive and still need to tell the story is still so critically important. As far as what to give this year or what we think is important as a big idea to give this year, we keep saying this, we've said it about 5 times, but this idea of the personalized gift. So think about where we've been this year and how disconnected we've felt. Not only do we want to give a gift that's meaningful and to let someone know that we've been thinking about them, we've been separated from our loved ones. It's really been such an emotionally charged year. But this idea that it could feel very close. I've been thinking of you, the message of a personalized gift is so critical. Maybe it's an initial pendant. We're seeing a lot of nameplate necklaces, even like a year instead of the traditional name as the nameplate. So it could be a year of birth. It could be a significant year, but also this idea of symbolic statements. So maybe it's someone that really loves astrology. So we're seeing a lot of zodiac signs. We're seeing a lot of, Jen has hers on.
I'm wearing a zodiac sign. I just bought my daughter a nameplate necklace with rainbow.
I love that. Everyone also has a symbol that means something to them. For me, it's the serpent. I love a snake. It's like shedding your skin, a new life. So I would love a gift that's like a beautiful snake something. Besides that, there's also this idea of personal amulets of protection. So maybe you want to give an evil eye. Maybe you want to give something that's on a red string. It's this idea of, I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of your safety and your security. And we've been through so much this year. And I love all of those ideas. Again, it goes back to this really beautiful story that you're telling to the one that you're giving the gift to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we know that during this time, this pandemic world, it's been tough for a lot of people. And so one thing that you kind of have touched on a few times is jewelry being a go-to gift item, especially with the symbolic meaning and the value and all of that. You can really do that within jewelry. And, we know neck mess is really hot right now. We're layering different things. So it's not necessarily
mess.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you can, people can't see it, but I always have a neck mess on. So I just like where you just like throw on so much jewelry that it becomes personalized because you have so much layered together.
I'm ashamed to say this. I have not heard this phrase and I love it. I've been using neckscape but neck mess is fantastic.
Neck mess and then braided ear. So there's so much, but it's been, and my background being in the jewelry industry and working on the consumer and communication side of it, jewelry is a really great go-to gift. And I just am curious on your perspective on, out of all the categories, why jewelry is such a great category in the accessories market, especially with gifting.
I think, we've said it so many times, but this idea that jewelry can be extremely personal. It can be something that really is so symbolic of this time that we're living in. Jewelry for me in 2020 and going into 21 in the future, it's really, as a product category, stood as an investment purchase. So I think that, anecdotally, I've read that people have more savings than ever. So we're going to see that the jewelry industry is booming because, instead of saving it, that they're not able to go out, they're not spending money on travel, they're going to spend it on tangible gifts. So as a category, I feel very strongly that the jewelry can only get better. It's something that also, without going out as much and without being out doing different activities or needing to buy fast fashion every few weeks and being seen in a new outfit on Instagram. It's this idea that in the fashion and mass markets of jewelry, we're also using this as the way to register newness for the season. So if we're on FaceTime or Zoom, like we were talking about before, if you can't see what I'm wearing, I need to have a significant amount of jewelry on so that you can see what's happening. Your neck mess. I love this. It's saying, I know what's going on. I know what's happening. I know I have my little moon on. It's the lunar eclipse season. It's as a category so critical, I think, because that's how we're registering the newness. So not only just the jewelry itself, but I would say hair accessories are also so critical. Whether you're stacking up headbands and kind of having this decorative moment, or wearing barrettes in your hair. I had also done a forecast for hair accessories that, because we've spent so much time in a mask or covered up this year, I think we'll be seeing, as people can take their masks off, a lot of hair pulled back and a lot of eye contact, face contact, and then within the hair, there'll just be a lot of action and accessorizing. Jewelry really, again, is like, it's the investment, it's the way of newness. In the other product categories, like footwear, to me is the emotional accessories purchase, and you're not necessarily giving that as a gift. It's more of a self purchase. Handbags are like a little bit more utility, it's more of an essential item. So jewelry becomes the go-to item. Also, it's non-sized. It's probably the easiest thing to give if you don't know someone's size or really don't feel comfortable in making ready to wear decisions for someone. So many reasons. Jewelry, it's the gift.
I love jewelry. And I know, from working in the industry, and I've been privy to a lot of surveys. The Jewelers Board of Trade came out with a survey, and they've found that consumers that are shopping for luxury category items, jewelry is one of the number one things that they're doing, because they aren't spending on travel and other amenities in the way that they once were. And so they're seeing a direct correlation, and a couple of retailers I work with have had really good years with Rolex and other brands, big brands in the watch category, but then also the fine jewelry, diamonds, and all of that. So very exciting. And I just wanted to ask you then, as retailers and designers prepare for 2021, any trends or things that they should keep on their radar to help grow their business for the year ahead?
Yeah, every season I really like to choose what I think are the 3 tenets of the season. And those should rule design, product development, presentation, merchandising, storytelling. They have tie-ins to all of the different facets of what it is that we do. So for spring 21, when I was doing my forecasts, almost a year out at this point, the 3 big ideas that I kept coming back to were comfort, security, and connectivity. And just to level set, I think that's something we have to keep in mind, is that we've lived through so much this year. We still have a little bit more to go. The second that mask restrictions lift, or that vaccinations roll out, it doesn't mean we're returning back to this way of life that we had, or this sense of normalcy that we had. comfort and security, I think, are going to be so critical. It's the ideas of having that, we've been through so much. Really, those tenets are so critical in bringing us back and making us feel like we're going to return to that sense of normalcy, but we're going to ease into it in the way that we need to. And then connectivity is so important. I mean, I have a bit of digital fatigue, I will be honest, but I spent the first couple of months of lockdowns being the biggest champion for Zoom happy hours and FaceTimes. And I used to host for my friends and for my family different dress up sessions on Zoom and on FaceTime. So I would send out what the theme was and everyone would dress up and just pop up on the screen of this theme. So this idea of connectivity for me is something that's so big. And I think we're going to keep that going into the future. Even from a business perspective, we've learned that we all don't need to sit in an office 5 days a week to make things happen. We can stay connected. Whether that's good or bad, I think a lot of people are probably working more than ever now that they're at home. But this idea of what connectivity means has really changed. For fall 21, looking forward, inclusivity and representation, I think, are so critically important. Not just from a product development perspective, which I do think is really, really important, that we're thinking about the wide range of people that exist in this world and not just a customer that we've voted upon as a brand and who we would like our brand, our customer to be. We have to be really open to being inclusive, but also this idea of, is there representation on our design teams, on our executive boards? It's been such a huge discussion as a culture and in our industry this season and this year, that I think that that's something that's going to be critically important, not just as a trend or something that's happening for one season, then we're over it, but this is a cultural shift within our industry. The other tenets for fall 21 that I had identified were the idea of quality and craftsmanship. I think, again, less about trends, fast fashion, fast changes in what we're looking for, but making items that last and that we care about. And as brands, I love this idea because we're going to have these seasonless, fantastic key items that are well made, which is great. And it's right for us as brands and as provided to our consumers, but it's also a margin building opportunity. So it's also fantastic for business. My last tenet.
And the environment, ultimately.
I know. So again, so sustainability. So you're even identifying. So now if I was to take those tenets, now the little arrows that come out, it's quality. Like sustainability as an idea is so critical. And that goes into that quality idea. My last tenet, I don't want to call it, a little thing. It's actually quite big, but the idea of fantasy in the everyday. We've been shopping for essentials now for about a year. I think we still have a few more months where we're really essentials focused on what our purchases are. But isn't it nice to think that our everyday items could have a little bit of fantasy in them? And I think we're going to start seeing that, whether it's I've seen so much like beading and personalization and charms on shoes, not just the gibbets in Crocs, but like on sneakers and things like that. Everyday household items. Swarovski had these really cool thimbles that were, it's this idea of like a little bit of sparkle and shine and fantasy in these everyday essential items. So now that we have a little bit more breathing room, that things seem to be moving in the right direction, it's okay for us to be open to fantasy again, I think.
That's so great. And is there any resources where people can learn more about trend spotting and the fashion business? I know you've kind of dropped a few, obviously, Accessories Magazine, which is coming out. Make sure to sign up for that. But is there anything else that you kind of look to get your information?
Sure. I mean, from an industry perspective, I read Business of Fashion every day to see what's happening. Women's Wear Daily is so critically important. And Accessories Magazine, which will be launching the first week of January, is going to be a fantastic resource for our categories. if you're looking from a styling perspective and really want to start filling your Google Drive up with all different albums of thousands of images, Instagram is probably my favorite resource. I follow every store that I've ever been in around the world. I follow many street style photographers, influencers, brands. And that for me is how you start getting your global lens to what's going on in the world and start thinking and creating your concepts. There's other resources that are out there. I think Pinterest has images. It's just a little bit harder to navigate. I actually have a fantastic idea for Pinterest and how that could be a better platform. Pinterest, please call me. That's my plug.
Yes, it can be a little overwhelming with the trying to navigate it. So good to know.
I have some great ideas.
Pinterest, calling and then anything else?
I think that if anyone was really accessories forecast, if that's what they're looking for, they would be really inclined to sign up for my mailing list and see when my next forecasts and presentations are for the Accessories Council. That is a great resource.
Also a great article in or some quotes within New York Times that recently came out. So, and I think you have it. Is it up on your website and on your social and everything? So that definitely check out that article because it's great, all about gifting. And then you have a presentation coming up for New York Now Digital Market. So can you tell us anything about that upcoming webinar?
I'm really looking forward. New York Now has been such a great partner for me, and I've loved working with the team as well as the brands and the exhibitors that are attending the show. Kind of just to give some insight too, I think that as an industry, we've really been so challenged to move the trade show model from something that was tactile and we were able to go in and touch product and interact to moving to a digital platform. So I've really been honored to work with the New York Now digital team to reimagine what the trade show experience could look like. I've previously done a spring summer 21 accessories trends presentation for them. And what we found was that information is really helping to guide what the big ideas and themes are for the season. My next presentation in January 21 is really going to be focused on this idea, this major concept of what I'm calling the new classic. So think about it in the way that we've experienced lockdowns and quarantine and we've been stuck in the house. So many people that I know cleaned out their closets during this time and they found things that they used to wear and love that they completely forgot about, or maybe they're thinking about editing certain things out of their closet. But the big message that we're seeing is, people identifying who do I want to be? What do I want my personal style to look like? And where am I lacking in that? And what I'm really forecasting is this idea of these classic items and these integral wardrobe investment pieces coming back and how to register those ideas in a way that feels new and forward and fresh. One of the tenets that I talked about before, fantasy in the everyday, we're also going to touch upon that because that's something that's so it's so optimistic and it's so forward thinking of where we're going to go in this new world. And I think that this idea of bringing a little bit of fantasy and optimism and even being a little bit more relaxed is very forward thinking. So I'm very excited for that presentation that's coming up.
Fantastic. Everyone, you heard it. So make sure to tune in for that. And any other things that you want to share or leave the listeners with as final takeaways?
Sure. I would say, again, looking forward to seeing everyone at the New York Now Digital Market for my presentation. Really hoping to connect with everyone outside of the presentation and really have some interesting breakout sessions and one-on-ones. Super excited to be fashion director of Accessories Magazine. I think that we'll have some great industry information that we're sharing there. And then just some personal projects that I'm really looking forward to in the new year as well.
Fantastic. So if anyone wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Great. So I am online. My website is JMR Design Consulting.com, where you can see some of the projects that I've worked on, as well as different press and trend forecasts. And you can sign up for my mailing list for any future forecast webinars that I'm going to be sharing, or podcasts, or any other really fun, exciting content. And on Instagram, I am Jessica X Rich, RICH.
Wonderful. And we will be in touch with you, so people can DM you, they can email you through your website. You love all forms of communication.
Yes.
And if anyone wants to reach out to me, my website is jencullenwilliams.com, and my Instagram is Jen C. Williams, which is mostly of my child, but she and I will say she's 3.5, and she legitimately wants to be a fashion designer and is constantly sketching. And she's, I think, actually a better drawer than I am. So it's very,
I love that.
I'm excited to see where that goes. And I just want to thank you, Jessica. This is so informative. I think there's so many great takeaways. I learned a lot from a trend perspective and just thinking out of everything from a macro view. I want to thank New York Now and Dundrill for organizing all of this, and thank the listeners for actually tuning in and listening. And I'm just very excited to connect with all of you at New York Now Digital Market. So thank you all. And anything else?
Thank you, Jen. This was so much fun.
So fun. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the New York Now podcast. Make sure to tune in weekly for engaging and insightful conversations touching on the most relevant topics facing our community today. Visit newyorknow.com to learn more about our market and how you can join in on the conversation.